Not just women have hormones, men have hormones too. So I'd like to begin by taking you through some of the symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance. Then I'm going to take you through some of the symptoms of a male having a hormonal imbalance. So some of the symptoms are very early periods. Do you know normal is 16 to 18, but we're getting young girls getting their periods at 9, 10 years of age. Something's terribly wrong. Oops, my Y has gone. Why? Because remember Newton's third law of motion states to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. There's always a reason. Proverbs 26 verse 2 states that the curse causeless shall not come. You know what? It's old English. It means no problem happens without a cause. There's always a cause. So very early periods, very painful periods. Also irregular periods, premenstrual tension. Isn't that good news that that is not normal? And today I'm going to show you how that can be eliminated. Let's go a little bit more serious. Fibroids in the uterus, cysts in the ovaries, polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, lumps in the breast, calcified deposits, thyroid problems, insomnia, depression, anxiety. Let's go even more serious. Breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. These are some of the symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance. What about a male? With a male, it can be low sperm count. How many couples are struggling to have children today? Also, penile dysfunction, inability to hold an erection. The current figures in Australia are 50% of men over the age of 50 are struggling with that. Why? There's a hormonal imbalance. Prostate problems. We didn't even know what the word prostate meant 40 years ago. It's almost a household name today. But it is another contributing, it's another factor in the hormonal imbalance. So what I'd like to look at today, I'd like to look at the hormones. I'd like to look at how they're made and notice what they're made from. They're made from cholesterol. If someone's cholesterol levels go too low, they're not going to be able to make their sex hormones properly. So what's a good cholesterol level? Anywhere between 2 and 300. Did everyone hear that? In fact, if you go under 150, that can really interfere with your ability to make hormones. When I talk on the heart, I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or the next day. Can you check for me, Jacqueline? Friday, we're going to talk on the heart, and everyone that has a heart should be there. And I'm going to show you the truth on cholesterol. But as you can see from here, it's a very important lipid in the body because from cholesterol, our body makes pregnenolone. And it is from pregnenolone that our body makes progesterone. And progesterone is a key hormone. Progesterone is the number one hormone for men and women because it is the precursor for all the other hormones. And this explains why it is often given the name mother. And it is from mother hormone that the daughters are made. That's the estrogens. It is from mother hormone that the sons are made, and that's testosterone. And it is also from the mother hormone that our adrenal hormones are made. Whether it be man or woman, that's our fight and flight hormones. So the adrenal hormones. So you can see why progesterone is given the name mother, because the mother is the precursor for those other hormones. I'm going to explain the monthly cycle like a monthly dance because different players come onto the stage at different times of the month. And this monthly dance runs for about 28 days here. Day 1 is the day a woman begins to menstruate. And I'd like to introduce you to the two star players in this monthly dance of the hormones. Progesterone is one of the key players, and progesterone in this monthly cycle or monthly dance is going to be wearing a green outfit. And one of progesterone's role is that of a happy hormone. And there's a saying in Australia that a lot of ladies don't like. It's happy wife, happy life. But it's actually true. When the mother in the home is happy, the whole home feels it. And there are many ladies who are lacking progesterone now, and that is one of the reasons they're suffering from depression, anxiety, and it's not a happy place. The other hormone in this monthly dance, estrogen. Estrogen's going to be wearing a red outfit, and estrogen's role in the body is that of a cell proliferator. Cell proliferator means causes massive cell growth. And last night when we looked at cancer, I shared a statement with you made from the Australian Cancer Foundation. Is a known human carcinogen. And the reason it's called a human carcinogen is because it's a cell proliferator. Estrogen's not bad. It's only when it's in high amounts that it has a negative or a damaging effect, as you will see. So looking at the monthly cycle or the monthly dance, day 1 is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. And day 1, progesterone levels are low. So mother hormone progesterone is backstage in that first week. In that first week, estrogen levels are also low, but by day 7, they're rising. So this second week of this monthly cycle or this monthly dance, it is estrogen levels that are high. So let's go to the stage where the dance is played out, which is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. And this includes the uterus, it includes the cervix, the birth canal. It also includes the fallopian tubes that come off each side of the top of the uterus, and then the ovaries are connected by a ligament. At this time of the month, estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus. Remember that first week, the blood nest came away. And so the second week, estrogen levels rise, which enables that blood nest to once again to develop. Estrogen, as a cell proliferator, is also causing massive cell growth in the ovaries, causing eggs to develop. Estrogen is also causing a form of lubricant to be released in the birth canal. By day 14, a fully developed egg bursts forth from the ovaries, and the filaments on the end of the fallopian tube pull the egg up. And the egg comes up, up, up. It's traveling up. The fallopian tubes are constantly going like this, causing that egg to move up, up. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister, and that blister is called corpus luteum. I've written it in green because it is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see the importance of a woman ovulating every month? Because when she ovulates every month, ovulation is the release of the egg, then corpus luteum's made. And when corpus luteum's made, that maintains mother hormone, maintains progesterone, maintains that happy hormone. With the development of corpus luteum, by day 14 or 15, now progesterone levels rise. As progesterone levels rise, then estrogen's giving the message, you can go backstage now. We've got our blood nest, our lubricant, our egg. So progesterone, as progesterone rises, estrogen levels start to drop. So what effect does this rise in progesterone have? This rise in progesterone has a few effects. One is it lines the uterus. It puts the finishing touches on the blood nest. I call it the plasterers painters on the blood nest. As a happy hormone, this time of the month, it rises a woman's mood to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect, and that is on the cervix. Let me magnify the cervix for you. The cervix looks like a soft little cushion with a hole in the middle. Let me draw it from sideways. From sideways, it basically looks like this. But under the effect of progesterone at this time of the month, the sides come up a little tighter, the mucus plug is released, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix, and that lubricant is designed specifically to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. So you can see the stage is set for the entry of man. Did you know that between 200 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? It's the smallest cell in the human body, and sometimes up to half the sperm comes straight back out. If the sperm meet this cervix, very difficult to gain entry, but the sperm are so tiny that some do get through. But if the sperm meet this cervix, this lubricant literally grabs the sperm and shoots it up. And it's got a long journey, long way to go. Some of them go down the wrong road, they die and get taken away. But some of them go down the right road. Aha, they've found their prize. No wonder God put between 2 and 500 million in there. I saw a photograph one day at a seminar of one egg and 15 sperm all trying to gain entry. The coating of the egg has folds, and what the sperm has to do is nudge its way in like this. Not easy. Eventually, when it does get in, it has to let go of its tail, and all those other folds close up tight, and a chemical is released to kill any other sperm that might try and gain entry. Isn't it incredible? Everything that has to be in place for the conception of a new human being. Occasionally, two sperm will enter at the same split second, and that is when the twins will share the placenta. What happens with conception? With conception, progesterone levels soar 200%. No wonder we say when a woman's pregnant, she's just blossoming. But what if she's not just blossoming? It would indicate that she's lacking progesterone, and that is a possibility which we will be looking at. Now, there's one mother, one progesterone, but there are three daughters. There's estrone, and estrone is given the name E1. There's estradiol, and estradiol is given the name E2. And then there's the delicate estrogen. I call her the little sister, estriol. And estriol is a delicate estrogen, that's E3. So both estrone and estradiol have strong cell proliferator action. Whereas estriol, it's the delicate estrogen, and it's estriol levels that rise in pregnancy with progesterone. But what happens if there's no conception? If there's no conception, by day 26, progesterone levels have dropped. If there's no conception, by 26, estrogen levels have dropped right down. And when both of these levels drop right down, the blood nest to the uterus is cut. And when the blood nest to the uterus is cut, then the blood nest comes away, and we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. That's what it should look like. Unfortunately, today, it doesn't look like that in many cases, and there's a reason for that. But before I look at the reasons why the cycle is out of balance, I want to comment on sperm for a moment. Sperm is an alien to woman's body. And when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So that when woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back her immune system and sperm survives. Isn't it a miracle any of us are here? But woman's body has memory. And every time her husband's sperm enters her, her immune system rises. But then it sees familiarity. It says, oh, it's husband. We'll just stand back. And sperm can go through freely. But can you imagine how difficult or dangerous it could be in the area of anal sex? In anal sex, this immune suppressant property of sperm going in an area where God never meant it to go. When there is conception, within a matter of days, you've got 2 cells and the DNA of a new human being is perfectly intact. Do you know there's a lot of discussion about when life begins? And when you know that, when does life begin? Life begins before the woman even knows she's pregnant. I had 6 babies. I didn't know I was pregnant until the next period didn't come. So by then I'm 3, maybe 4 weeks pregnant. And yet that's first 2 cells that have been created with the DNA never has been, never will be again. That is the beginning of a new human being. Just incredible. In Psalm 139, verse 14, the Bible says, I will praise you, for I'm fearfully, wonderfully made, marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And that psalmist that said that didn't know the intricacies of what I'm sharing with you now. It's incredible what the research is showing as the equipment gets more refined and it can go deeper and deeper into this human body. Did you know that Darwin's theory rested? He said his theory rested on what they would find inside the cell. You know what's happening inside the cell? A veritable city. It's inside the cell. It's incredible. There are conveyor belts, there's little workshops, there's motors. In other words, that actually has disproven Darwin's theory. Let's have a look now at what causes an imbalance. Number 1. In fact, it first began in 1957. Does anyone know what happened in 1957? Yes, my husband was born. Something else happened. In 1957, the first contraceptive pill was introduced to women. 1960s, it's called the sexual revolution. Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. But as one health writer in Australia, her name was Elaine Hollingsworth, she's passed now, she wrote the book How to Eliminate the Sickness Industry. She calls the pill the mass murder of millions of women. Why does she say that? What is the pill? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And diosgenin in a laboratory can be converted to progesterone. It's called progesterone because it has an identical molecular structure to the progesterone that is made in our body. But the pharmaceutical companies cannot patent that. They can only patent something they create. So they add a few more atoms in one area, and this was in the 1957, they came up with a synthetic estrogen. And that synthetic estrogen is what was in the pill, but within 10 years it was being revealed that it was causing problems. Because this synthetic estrogen causing estrogen to rise as a cell proliferator. Now women are starting to show endometriosis, they're starting to show fibroids, they're starting to show growths. And so very quickly they had to do something. So they added a few more atoms. This was in about the 70s, 80s, and they included in the pill now is synthetic progesterone, which is progestin or progestone. Has that helped? No, it hasn't helped at all. What it's done is it now competes with our progesterone on the receptor side. How does the pill work? Well, when these synthetic hormones are taken into the body, They go through the biochemical pathway that your body uses to make hormones, and it causes a disruption, causes an imbalance. And the body says, what's wrong? Must be pregnant. And because the body thinks it's pregnant, it doesn't release the egg. And so it doesn't release the egg, the woman doesn't fall pregnant. But if the egg's not released, what's not made? Corpus luteum. And if corpus luteum's not made, progesterone levels start to drop. So let me show you what's happening month after month on the pill. So the green is our progesterone. Here is estrogen. This is how the balance should be. But day after day, after week, after month, no ovulation, no corpus luteum, progesterone levels are dropping. Month after month on the pill with its synthetic estrogen, where's estrogens going? We now have a situation, sadly too common, called estrogen dominance. Progesterone deficiency. Where's estrogen now? Estrogen's up here. Estrogen with its cell proliferator action causing massive cell growth in the uterus. The lining of the uterus is called endometrium. Too much endometrium starts to wander all through the abdominal wall, making little pockets. That's called endometriosis. 70 years ago, there are only probably a couple of hundred cases. Today, 10 million in America alone. Why? All coming about the time that the pill was introduced to women, causing this high estrogen. Estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, causing fibroids to grow in the uterus, causing cysts to grow on the ovaries, causing polyps to grow in the birth canal, abnormal cells on the cervix. Proverbs 26 verse 2, the curse causeless shall not come. No problem, none of these growths happen without a cause. And sorry, you can't blame the genes. I think we're looking at genes tomorrow. You know, they're saying you can only apply 5% to genes today. Genetics loads the gun, but it is lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, causing growth to develop in the breast to the point of breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. Australian Cancer Foundation stated estrogen is a known human carcinogen. Can you see how it's contributing to that? And high estrogen opposes thyroid function. How many women are on the pill in their teens and 20s and they're now in their 50s and 60s with thyroid problems? Or maybe it's a young woman with a thyroid problem not realizing that her mother was on the pill for 5 years before she gave birth to her, and so she's been born with this hormonal imbalance. So if it's in the genes, then the question is, well, why is it in the genes? Is it because the mother was on the pill? Let's have a look at those women who are on the pill in their teens, in their 20s. It was the baby boomers. They're now in their 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They're going through menopause. How are they faring? Hot flushes. Hot flushes is high estrogen. Weight gain. It's very, very difficult to lose weight if estrogen's high because it's a cell proliferator. Where's happy hormone, by the way? Down here. The woman suffering from anxiety, depression, insomnia. She has no desire for sex, and when she has sex, it's very painful. Her husband's secretary is looking better all the time. Very, very difficult situation, and she hates it and she knows it. She's the CEO of a company. She's giving a board meeting and she gets a hot flush. And the perspiration's dripping. She's so embarrassed. She goes to the doctor. He gives her something that will help her. Put not your trust in princes. Hormone replacement therapy. What's hormone replacement therapy? More synthetic hormones. The flushes stop. Why do the flushes stop? Well, the body thinks it's pregnant now. It's getting these synthetic hormones, causing an imbalance. 6 years later, she's got a lump on her breast. She has a test. She's got breast cancer. The doctor takes her off hormone replacement therapy immediately. Why does he do that? He knows. So if you say to him, why did you put her on the pill? And this is his response, well, she was suffering and it brought her relief. That's true. But you ask the woman, what would you prefer, hot flushes or breast cancer? What will the answer be? Bring on the hot flushes. I'll get a black lace fan. I've seen quite a few black lace fans. But what I'm showing you today is another option of how you can restore balance to the hormones. That's the good news. So the doctor was suffering and it brought her relief, and not every woman will get breast cancer, and that is true. But I'm not interested in playing Russian roulette with my health, with my life. But there are some women who have obviously hormonal imbalance, but they've never been on the pill. Their mother was never on the pill. No HRT, no synthetic hormones. What causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? It's hormones. It's against the law to give the chickens hormones now. So they've genetically modified the chicken to produce more estrogen. They get it to market earlier, they get more money. I hear Biden effectively killed about 6 million chickens before he went. Is that right? Interesting. If it's in the chicken, it's in the egg. If it's in the meat, it's in its products. It's against the law in Australia for cattle farmers to give their cattle growth stimulants. But we had a cattle farmer's wife attend our program. She said they knock on our door every month pushing the growth stimulants. We don't do it, but most do. And they're told when to stop it so it's not picked up in the blood test at the abattoirs. But it's still in the tissues. Well, what about fish? Well, when you got 80% of women on the pill or HRT, and they're going to the toilet and the sewage goes out to sea and the fish are feeding on the sewage, and there are some fish farmers who are giving their fish some growth stimulants, get them to market early, get more money. And by the way, if it's in the fish, then the people that are eating those fish, they're having the effect. They're finding female fish with male tendencies. They're finding fish not reproducing like they should. So it's coming down the line. This is why I love lentils. But you got to be a bit careful on lentils too. Herbicides, insecticides. That's why it's important to go organic. One of the worst herbicide is glyphosate. And glyphosate, it directly works on the hormones of the plant. In fact, it was in 2015 that the Sri Lankan government banned glyphosate or Roundup because there are so many rice farmers that were coming down with endocrine cancers. Now, I say this in my book, Sustain Me, and then my graphic designer who checks everything that I say, he said, Barbara, you wouldn't believe it, in 2019, the Sri Lankan government once again legalised glyphosate. Has it suddenly become safe? Not at all, not at all. If you eat potatoes that are not organic, you're getting glyphosate. So you have to be careful on the food that you're eating. I would much rather find a caterpillar in my lettuce, because what does that mean? There's no sprays. What do they say? Don't panic, it's organic. Plastics. This is big. When I was a little girl in the 50s, 60s, everything I wore was cotton. Cotton socks, cotton underwear, cotton blouses, except in the winter I'd have my woolly jumper on. You call it a sweater made out of wool. And when I went to school, my sandwiches were wrapped up in greaseproof paper in a brown paper bag. The milk was delivered to the house in a glass bottle. The cereal was in greaseproof paper in cardboard boxes, but plastic is everywhere today. It is everywhere. And one of the problems is this: estrogen has a phenyl ring. And that phenyl ring is the key that unlocks the door to get into the cell. Many plastics today contain the phenyl ring. One is nonylphenol. Those from my era, do you remember when dashboards used to crack? My brother David, his first car was a second-hand Zephyr, and the whole dashboard was cracked. So he put turquoise fur on it and a cow whose head went up and down. That's very 60s. But they don't crack anymore, have you noticed? That's because they've got nonylphenol in them. It softens the plastic. When I was a little girl, if a plastic bottle was out in the sun for a week or two, it all cracked. If you notice that they don't crack anymore, that's because they've got either nonylphenol or bisphenol A in them. And this bisphenol A, well, they're both chemicals that have an estrogen mimicker. They've got that phenyl ring, and that phenyl ring has an estrogen effect on the body. So plastics can do it. You can get BPA-free plastic. You've probably seen my plastic bottle here. It's a hard plastic. It's BPA-free. So you can get plastic that's BPA-free. One of the worst things with those plastics is if they get heated. You've probably heard the danger of leaving a plastic bottle in the car. And Dr. Anna Zotto, she's an American endocrinologist. She was growing cancerous breast tissue in flasks in her laboratory, and if she fed it estrogen, the cancer multiplied. She stopped feeding it estrogen, it would just stagnate. One morning she came in and it had grown overnight. And this really puzzled her. And so she contacted the people that make the flasks. And she said, "Are you making a different flask?" They said, "Yeah." And when she looked at the ingredients, the flask had nonylphenol in it. So this phenol in the flask was feeding the cancerous breast tissue. It is how many made out of chemical fabrics. Contributing factors, like the dripping tap on a stone. I think it's impossible to eliminate plastic. It's handy stuff. But be very careful on what's touching your skin, and be very careful on what you store your food in. I know the Simple Needs bread, they come in, it looks like a plastic, but it's actually cellophane, which does not have the dangers of this plastic. So how can we turn this around? Before I show you how we can turn it around, I want to show you about soy. There's certainly a question on soy. So let me show you the effect of soy. These are 3 cells, and these are 3 estrogen receptor sites on the cell. And this one here is the xenoestrogens. So these chemical mimickers of estrogen are called xeno. And by the way, these chemical estrogens, they have strong cell proliferator action. So the xenoestrogen, it is 20,000 times stronger than the plant. So how big is it? It's big. It's a big one. So how big is human estrogen? Because the xenoestrogen is 20,000 times stronger than the human. How big is human? It just sits like this. But the human estrogen is 20,000 times stronger than plant. So how big is the plant? The plant just sits into the lining like this. Which is the one we most need to fear? It's certainly not the soy. It's not the plant. It's actually the xeno. And the soybean grown in America today is called Roundup Ready. Why is it called Roundup Ready? It's been genetically modified to resist Roundup. And a farmer told me this. He said 5 times before market, the whole field is sprayed. And he said all the weeds die And the soybean keeps growing. That's scary, isn't it? So that soybean is a very dangerous soybean. That soybean will increase breast cancer, will increase prostate cancer, not because of the naturally occurring plant estrogens, but because of the xenoestrogens. So those xenoestrogen mimickers, they're 400 times stronger than the gentle plant estrogen. And remember Psalm 104 verse 14, where the Bible says that God gave herbs for the service of man. Those plant estrogens come along and they knock. Excuse me, cell, do you need me? And the cell says no. So what the plant does, it sits at the door. And the beauty of that is it protects that receptor site from the xeno. Now remember that xenoestrogen, it's got the phenyl ring. In other words, it's got the key that unlocks the door. So it just gets straight in. It doesn't knock. It just barges right on in. But if the plant estrogen knocks at the door and says, do you need me? And the plant says, oh, yes, please, then it will come in. It's called synergism. So the plants work with the needs of the body. Different to chemicals, and really drugs are chemicals. Remember, they're robots. Get out of my way. I've got a job to do whether you need it or not. And it reminds me of what my girlfriend said. She did her thesis on soy. People say, what about soy? She said, it's real easy. God made it good. Man mucked it up. End of story. Do I eat soy? I do. Not a lot, but I do eat a bit. But it's always organic. You see, an organic farmer will not use genetically modified seed. Otherwise, he loses his organic status. So how can we turn this around? Number one, turn the tap off. Eliminate. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still mopping up in the other corner. Eliminate. Eliminate the pill. Eliminate HRT. Drugs never cure disease. They just change the form and location. They've all got side effects. So how can we stop having babies popping up everywhere? Sex is two-part. Contraception should be two-part. The woman's role is to know when she's ovulating, and her body will give her 3 signs. One sign is that her temperature will change. She takes her temperature before she gets out of bed every day, and it goes a bit like this, then it drops and goes up onto a higher plane. So when she sees that drop and up onto a higher plane, that is her sign that she has begun to ovulate. And most women, around day 14, might be day 30, might be day 15. It allows a woman to define exactly when. My daughter Jessica showed me recently, she said, Mum, I've got an app on my phone. I put my temperature in every day and it tells me if I'm safe or I'm not safe. The second sign is that the vaginal lubricant changes. So when estrogen's high, the lubricant is white and thick, not as profuse. But when progesterone levels rise, and then we get this special type of lubricant that is very clear, that's very stringy and quite profuse. And the third sign is that the cervix changes. So it's a matter of a woman checking her cervix every day. At first, she's got nothing to compare it to, but as the weeks and the months go by, she starts to see the changes in her cervix. And she will find in the majority of cases that those 3 signs will come together this week here. So she says to her husband, I'm safe, I'm not safe, I'm safe. And when she is not safe, her husband can master the art of withdrawal or wear a condom. And I was reading in a magazine about Italian men, how they prided themselves in not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. And I thought, how nice that the man take responsibility for it. Because I know in Australia, the woman goes on the pill, or she has a tubes card, or she goes on an IUD or Mirena, but they all are dangerous. They all interfere with the body's naturally occurring symptoms, her naturally occurring cycles. So eliminate the pill, eliminate HRT, And what you will learn here, you will not need the HRT with its dangerous side effects. Eliminate meat and its products. If you want to eat meat and its products, must be organic. One of our guests said, well, if it's going to be organic, I'm not going to be eating a lot of it. It's expensive. Eliminate the herbicides, insecticides. Go for organic food as much as possible. Eliminate plastic as much as is reasonable, as much as you possibly can, and have a serious look at your cleaning products. So the chemicals, which I think herbicides, insecticides, they are all basically classified as chemicals. It's crept up on us. And I remember we had a pest control guy attend our program. And I said to him, is it true that you can buy in the supermarket solutions that you are forbidden to use? He said yes. Because they've really got to be careful what they spray houses with, because they've had too many sick people from the sprays. So if you don't turn the tap off, you'll still be mopping up in the other corner. These things must stop. Number 2, your liver has the ability to release excess estrogen out of it, and it'll do it via 2 pathways. And one pathway is the hydroxy-2 pathway. That's the one that releases excess estrogen out. And what stimulates that pathway is vitamin B6, B9, and B12. If someone has a hormonal imbalance, initially they may need to supplement with vitamin B6, B12, and B9. Also, the cabbage family. The cabbage family contains a plant chemical called indoles. And indoles stimulate the hydroxy-2 pathway, which is the pathway that the liver uses to eliminate excess estrogen. Flaxseed. Flaxseed is high in lignans, another plant chemical that stimulates the pathway to release excess estrogen. Licorice. If you've got high blood pressure, forget the licorice, not the sweet or the candy. I'm talking about the herb. So the first point, turn the tap off. The second point, stimulate the liver to release excess estrogen. Number 3, the wild yam cream. Every country that I go into, I find have some sort of wild yam cream. And the wild yam cream contains diosgenin. And diosgenin, when it is applied to the skin, it stimulates this pathway that your body uses to make progesterone. And whether your estrogen's high or whether it's low, you stimulate mother hormone, progesterone automatically brings back the balance. Remember, our body runs according to precision balance, and our body loves to balance us. And the beauty of this cream, remember Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herbs for the service of man. When that cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take it up, and it stimulates this pathway to make its own. I do know that here in America you can buy from a compounding chemist a progesterone cream. But unfortunately, if you keep using that progesterone cream, the body gets lazy and doesn't make its own. If a woman's just found out she's got breast cancer, she's having hot flushes all the time, not sleeping, the progesterone cream certainly can give her a start. But after probably the first jar, she should go over to the wild yam cream. And I know on Jacqueline's website, OK Be Helpful, she has some wild yam creams. You can search out wild yam creams. Just read the labels to make sure that it's got all good stuff in it. So how do you apply it? It's usually about the size of a pea to the inside of your arms one time, thighs another time, abdomen another time, Chest another time. You alternate your sites of application, and a woman will apply it for 3 weeks of the month. Applies it for these 3 that she is not menstruating. So she stops at menstruation. If a woman is not ovulating or menstruating anymore, she just chooses 1 week of the month where she does not apply the cream. So a lot of women choose to eliminate the last week of the month or the first week of the month, and that makes it easy to remember. The key is consistency. One girl said, "Oh, how'll I ever remember it?" I said, "Put it on your pillow. And when you lie down at night, it's hard to sleep because there's a big lump under your head." Or put it next to your toothbrush, or put it on your bedside table, because, you know, C will do. Takes 21 days to form a habit. So they've just got to, or sometimes people put an alarm on their phone. So first thing in the morning, last thing at night, apply that little bit of cream. And by the second month, you'll be getting into the habit of it. One lady who'd applied it for a year, she said, "I've stopped now because I'm fine, but I keep reaching for the cream. I'm so much in the habit." And this lady, she'd been on the pill for 7 years before she had her babies. And she had no obvious symptoms, because what is a very important part of it is the laws of health, which are beautifully illustrated up on the wall there. So the laws of health are important because they're your foundation. That's going to bed early, exercising every day, eating nourishing food, keeping well hydrated, getting rid of all the stimulants. That's your foundation, and applying the cream. So she applied it for a year. Then she stopped. I think she was about 55. She'd stopped menstruating and the flushes came. So she went back on the cream for another 6 months, and then she stopped, no more flushes. So that's pretty good. She needed to apply it for 18 months, pretty good considering she'd been on the pill, the hormone disruptor, for 7 years. I've also met several women who've conquered their thyroid problems. In my book, Sustain Me, I have a whole protocol in there, but part of the protocol is applying the wild yam cream, because high estrogen opposes thyroid function. So when the wild yam cream is applied and progesterone is boosted, that automatically brings estrogen down, which helps the thyroid to recover. I met a 90-year-old lady who was on the wild yam cream for osteoporosis. The 2 main cells made in the bones are osteoblast. So osteo means bone and blast is new bone. And what stimulates osteoblast is progesterone. The other type of cell is osteoclast. An osteoclast take away the old bone, and it is estrogen that stimulates osteoclast. Now, when the hormones are in their correct level, then as the old bone's taken away, progesterone brings in the new, and it works together very nice. But if there's an imbalance of too much estrogen and not enough progesterone, can you see now we've got too much old bone being taken away, and because progesterone is low, the new cells aren't being replaced. What's that called? Osteoporosis. How many women are on the pill in their teens, in their 20s, and now they're in their 50s and they've just been diagnosed with osteopenia, osteoporosis? In my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter on osteoporosis, and I explain this, the importance of balancing the hormones for strong bones. What about men? Men are not cyclic. In fact, Cheryl Selman, in her book, Hormone Heresy, she says, men are like the sun. They rise every morning, conquer the day, go down at the end of the day. Women are like the moon. Sometimes they're full. Haven't we got a beautiful full moon at the moment? Sometimes they're half, sometimes they're a slither. So because women are cyclic, they need to have that break once a month. But men are not cyclic, so they apply it twice a day, every day. Why would a man apply it? He would apply it for low sperm count. He would apply it for penile dysfunction. In fact, one man said to me, I'm sorry to say this, Barbara, but I've just got to tell you, this cream puts lead in my pencil. He said, I'm not quite performing like I was when I was 20, but I'm better than I was. We had a man who came to us with prostate cancer. He was 68 and he was having a 3-monthly injection to balance the hormones. He developed breasts. He was having hot flushes several times a day. He attended our retreat. He heard the lectures on hormones. He also heard the lectures on the laws of health. And he made a decision to stop coffee. He made a decision to stop his nightly red wine, to go to more of a plant-based diet, and also to try applying the yam cream and not have that 3-monthly injection anymore. His wife emailed me 10 months later. She said, he's doing great, he's lost weight, the breasts have gone down, he's not having hot flushes anymore, and we just had a blood test and his testosterone levels are the best they've been for years. What an incredible body that has an inbuilt ability to heal and to balance. It runs according to precision balance, and adhering to the basic laws of health and applying that cream allows the body to once again to have its balance restored. But I want to mention for a moment the menopausal woman. The menopausal woman with her hot flushes, yes, the yam cream will help reduce the flushes by boosting progesterone. It might take a month, it might take a two. How long will it take to fully balance? Often it will take at least a year. But it doesn't mean the lady's not getting response before then. Often the symptoms ease within the first month. In fact, one lady in Ireland, she was getting migraines every day. She'd had migraines every day since the birth of her last child. So that tells me it's hormones. She told me that night she went home and the migraine was coming. She'd heard the lecture, so she applied the cream. Within half an hour, the migraine had gone. The next morning she got up and the migraine started to come. She applied the cream again and the migraine didn't develop. 2 weeks later, she travelled 2 hours to see me. She said, Barbara, I just have to tell you I've had no migraines. Now, it's not the only cause of a migraine, but for this lady it was. I like to use the process of elimination. Let's eliminate anything that could be contributing to it. So let's look at the menopausal woman. She's overweight, not happy with it, finding it so hard to lose weight. She's also feeling sad all the time, and she's been diagnosed with depression and the doctor wants to put her on antidepressants. Do you know, antidepressants are a terrible thing. In fact, I was reading in one book, the paragraph said the depressing effects of antidepressants. And on Friday night, I'm going to look at healing the mind. Even the mind can heal when given the right conditions. And my friend who's a doctor, she said, you know, in the medical journals it states that antidepressants can cause depression. One of the side effects of many antidepressants is suicide. So sorry, but keep away from that one. But this lady, she was really struggling with hot flushes, struggling with her depression, weight gain. She had no desire for sex, and when she had sex, it was incredibly painful because she had no lubricant, and the cells lining her vagina were getting so tender. She was of all women most miserable. She heard these lectures. She started to apply the yam cream. She started to lose weight little by little. She got her carbohydrates down. She started to implement the laws of health. She also found that it increased her libido a little bit, but she was really struggling with the painfulness of sex. And that's where she discovered the yoni stones. So the yoni stones were developed in the Chinese dynasty. The empress apparently used them, some of the concubines, and they are 3 stones. This is the largest stone, and this is the middle-sized stone, and they're made out of nephrite jade, and they're like marble, and they have little holes in the bottom where you can put dental floss in for easy extraction, and that largest stone is inserted until it touches the cervix. The lady won't even know that it is there. And what she does with the yoni stone, she wears it 1 hour a day, week 1, 2 hours a day, week 2, 3 hours a day, week 3, 4 hours a day, week 4, 5 hours a day, week 5. And what that does is that strengthens her internal pelvic girdle. And because her pelvic girdle is holding that stone, blood supply is increased there because the muscles are working. And as the blood supply is increased, then the glands that create the lubricant are starting to be revived. And because the blood is increased to the birth canal, the cells that line the birth canal are starting to strengthen. One lady, in fact, not one lady, I've had several ladies say to me, after several months of wearing the yoni stone, sex is no longer painful. The lubricant's returned, the cells are no longer tender. I think I mentioned yesterday the role that they're playing in prolapse. What is a prolapse? Prolapse is when the uterus, it can drop right down to the opening of the birth canal, incredibly painful. And it's like my daughter, her midwife, she was in her 50s and she had a prolapse. She went to the doctor and he said he could sew it up with mesh. Now, I don't know if you've Googled what happens with that mesh. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. We had 2 ladies attend our program in their 50s, about 6 months apart. Both had had prolapses. Both had had the surgery with mesh. Both times it hadn't worked. And now they've got the terrible uncomfortableness of the prolapse and the mesh until finally the doctor was able to book them in for a total hysterectomy. And then they came to our program and they heard this. They heard about the yoni stones. See, it's just muscles, and muscles can be strengthened. And all the yoni stone does is it strengthens the pelvic girdle internally, and it's strengthened by holding the stone. So after 6 months of wearing the bigger stone, then the lady can go to the middle-sized stone. One lady told me that when she'd finished wearing the big stone, her 35-year-old daughter said, "Mum, can I have the big stone now?" After her last birth, it wouldn't go too well. She wanted to strengthen her internal organs, and she used the yoni stone. And I had a couple come to me, and they were in their late 50s, and they said, "We're a bit embarrassed to tell you this, but thanks for reviving our sex life." The man said, "Yes, I'm performing better than I was." And the lady said, "Sex is no longer painful for me." Such simple things that can be implemented. Another reason why I believe that God designed each one of us to be our own doctors, and this information enables us to do that. And I love teaching people how to be their own doctors. It's time to trust our body. Put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. But verse 5 says, "Happy is he that hath the God of Jacob as his help, whose hope is in the Lord his God, that made heaven, earth, sea, and all that in them is," that includes us, "that keeps truth forever." And that's what I'm interested in, is truth. Now we're going to look at a few questions. I see Jacqueline has a handful there. So we will be answering questions now. We'll also be answering them tonight. Would you recommend the same liver detox for someone with cancer or Lyme's disease? I certainly would. Treatments being received are currently homeopathic and herbal. And it is true that herbals, there are herbs that can strengthen the liver, there are herbs that can tone the liver, there are herbs that can even unblock blockages in the liver. One is milk thistle, another is dandelion. In my book, the chapter of the liver, I list those. How to best support liver health through pregnancy. The best way to support liver health through pregnancy is really just to eat very, very well and eat as much organic as possible. People say you don't have an eating program for a pregnant woman. That's because I don't think it's any different to usually eating. I didn't eat any different when I was pregnant. Just make sure you're having high fiber, generous protein, great fats, and you'll have a healthy baby. How often do you recommend a liver flush? So in my books, I have defined a liver flush, and it all depends on the person. How often do I do a liver flush? Never. It all depends on the person. If you're not well, maybe with battling cancer, the liver flush can be helpful. If you've got gallstones, it will help to eliminate the gallstones. And if the person does have the gallstones, they might do a liver flush maybe every couple of months until they're free of the gallstones. Is there a vitamin that can help clean the liver? Not that I know of, but there are certainly herbs that can. Is it possible that my liver or now my body detoxes could trigger an autoimmune course like Hashimoto's? As you saw, it's the hormonal imbalance that is more likely to affect the thyroid. If so, now would you treat it? Well, in my book, Sustain Me, there's a whole chapter on the thyroid. You can go there. And again, I don't believe in autoimmune diseases. And one of the reasons I don't is because I've seen people totally heal from autoimmune diseases. We live in an incredible body. Sometimes I think a person's given the name autoimmune when actually the princes don't quite know what label to give you. And Dr. John Clark, that's easy to remember. John Clark, he gives meetings online showing the link between childhood shots and autoimmune diseases later in life. See, something's come in to cause the problem. How long does it take for the body or liver to detox mold and mycotoxins? Can mold toxicity cause skin reactions? It certainly can. Discolorations of my trunk? Maybe so. I've also had the COVID vaccine. So sorry to hear that. And I know that many people were blackmailed into that. And I know a lot of people are angry now when they look back at how they were blackmailed into it. But Dr. McCulloch, he has an excellent protocol on detoxing from the COVID vaccine. In my book, Self-Heal by Design, I show programs where you can detox from mold. My liver enzymes were perfect, but I have liver cysts and a cyst on my lungs. I'm plant-based and exercise, Pilates 5 times a week. I'll never know if I've got liver cysts because I'll never had a test. And I'll never know if I have cysts on my lungs because I'll never have a test. I just make sure I give my body the right conditions and everything works. So with the liver cysts, again, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people have got a few cysts on their liver. We don't live in a perfect world. But what you can do is you can start giving your liver herbs. You can start eating a more plant-based diet, go organic as much as possible. And also listen to the body. The body will always tell you if there's a problem. Many people have problems and they've just don't take any notice of what, they just live with it. And poor old age, doesn't it get blamed for so many things? My college daughter has severe acne and scarring. What do you recommend? When does acne begin, students? Puberty, that's right. Adolescence. So it has to do with the hormonal imbalance. So my suggestion is going on it. She's currently on spirolactin medication. Please stop that as soon as possible. as soon as possible. Drugs never cure disease, never. And they all have side effects. All of them have side effects. So that's what I would do, is balance the hormones and make sure she's on a mostly organic plant-based diet. What should I be asking if struggling to fall pregnant? We have seen many couples have babies after they've gone on those basic laws of health and implemented the yam cream. In fact, one couple that didn't think they could have children, a year after attending our program, I got a photo of their new baby. Can a hormonal imbalance trigger seizures? There'd have to be some other things in place for that. So it may be part, but one of the biggest causes of seizures is the neurotoxins in the childhood shots. I have been on birth control since I was 17 and consistently since my second child at 27. I have fibroids, excessive blood during menstruation. What would you suggest coming off birth control and dealing with fibroids? Any suggestions, students? The wild yam cream. And also stop the contraceptive pill. It's a dangerous pill. And castrol compresses. Castrol compresses on the abdomen can little by little break those fibroids down. That's the good news. But the birth canal is causing high estrogen, and that high estrogen is feeding those fibroids. Do you have any recommendations for someone with acromegaly? Not sure what that one is. They got some interesting names now, don't they? Tumor is large and wrapped around carotid artery and optic nerve. Eesh. I'm very sorry to hear that, but I would apply. So the carotid artery is here, and of course the optic nerve is in the eye. I would be applying castor oil. Rub castor oil in several times a day, because I doubt if they will operate on that, because you could lose your eyesight. What is the cause and treatment for varicose veins and spider veins? I've got some good news in the book Sustain Me. I have a whole chapter on that. But varicose veins is often a bit of genetics. Carrying excess weight can compound it. Constipation can compound it. Being on your feet all day can compound it. But I outline that in detail in my book. Could you give some advice for my children to get along and don't argue? Stop the sugar. Get the carbs right down. Get them exercising. And I never allowed my children to argue. If ever I heard a raised voice, I would run. And I say, what's happening? What's happening? So I taught them to negotiate, because to me it is never all right, never all right. So we need to teach them how to communicate. Do you know what that means? Mother and father don't argue in front of them. If you've got an issue, behind closed doors. And we should never raise our voice. If it's behind closed doors, they'll still hear you. What is the best food to gain muscle? Protein. Protein. And the plant-based protein is legumes, nuts, and seeds. What causes my feet to turn yellow? How can I cure it? I'm not sure why your feet are turning yellow. You could go barefoot on the grass, on the sand. That's very good for feet, walking on the sand, and also walking in the waves. Just sand and waves, that's very, very good therapy for feet, and you've got a beach fairly close. Can do that. What fabric would you recommend for swimsuits? Aha. When I do steam bath with the guests, I wear a cotton crop top and little cotton shorts. That's what I wear. I talked to someone last week who told me he was looking at making swimwear out of natural fibre. I don't know whether Booty's doing it. I haven't investigated all that, but hopefully someone's doing it. What is your opinion on sea moss for minerals? As long as it's collected from a fairly pristine part of the sea, I think sea moss can be good. Do you need to soak nuts, legumes, cereals before you eat them? Do they contain lectins? What is your thought on oxalate in spinach, kale, and nuts? You don't need to soak nuts, but you need to chew them very, very well. And as long as you soak lentils or legumes and cook them well, that disarms the lectins. And grains, they should be well cooked or made into a sourdough bread. That disarms the lectins. So if they're cooked properly, that will disarm the lectins. Oxalate's only a problem because Jacqueline and I, we eat lots of greens. We eat greens every single day and nuts. Oxalate in the spinach and the kale is usually only a problem if a person's got a very acid condition in their body, which is common if they're not drinking enough water, if they're eating a lot of acid foods, which are meats and dairies and refined foods. So it's only usually a problem then. Suggestion for moisturizing skin. I do recognize that some people are born with a drier skin. I wasn't born with a dry skin. So it's hard for me to suggest because I've never put anything on my skin, but I know coconut oil. You can get some really nice moisturizers that have coconut oil based. You can get some nice moisturizers that haven't got any nasties in them, so it's a matter of investigating that. Can you still have green barley with a thyroid problem? You can. You can. Can you oil pull with metal amalgams? You can. You can. Because remember, when you're oil pulling, you're releasing it out. You're not swallowing it. Should mercury fillings be removed? Absolutely. Mercury is a neurotoxin. I don't know how they ever got away with putting it in our mouths. Did you know mercury was banned in dentistry for 300 years? But in the early 1920s, a group of dentists from Europe came to America. They started their own dental association and legalized mercury. Doesn't even look nice, does it? So if you do get them removed, please go to a biological dentist who's aware of the dangers and will put protection in your mouth. Is it okay to eat salt if you have high blood pressure? It is. And on Friday, I'm going to explore that in detail. If you can't come Friday, in my book, Sustain Me, I have a whole lecture on the heart. It's called Love Your Heart with All Your Heart. Can you share 3 books that you reference the most when learning the knowledge you share? Do you know how many books I've got at home? Hundreds. In my book, Sustain Me, I have, at the end of every chapter, I've got the books for that chapter. But one book that really opened my eyes on what happened to the wheat is Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis. That's an excellent one to read. And another one is The Calcium Lie by Dr. Robert Thompson. And that's a real eye-opener. He shows our bones aren't made of calcium. They're made of minerals, many different minerals. And Dr. John Lee, he has passed now, but he wrote a book called What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Menopause. And you can still watch podcasts of him on YouTube, Dr. John Lee. He is the doctor that blew the whistle on what I've shown you today, this hormone disruption. So there are 3 interesting books to start with. Do we drink broth at 6 p.m. on day 2 of the detox? Our guests have broth every single night. They have it on the 2 detox days and every other day because they have the main meal in the middle of the day. While on the 2-day juice fast, do you recommend any of the teas? Gut tea, digest tea, colon tea? Definitely the colon tea to make sure the colon keeps moving on the juicing days. The digest tea, we don't use that until our guests start eating because it boosts digestion. What are some natural remedies for dandruff? It's very important to look at the shampoo you're using, because there is a chemical in most shampoos called sodium lauryl sulfate. And sodium lauryl sulfate is what causes the foaming. But sodium lauryl sulfate, it kills hair follicles. Another one of those funny things. So just be careful, just have to read your labels when you buy shampoo. And that can certainly be contributing to dandruff. And also, often it can be a yeast or fungus in the body, so going on the antifungal diet can help. What type of cayenne pepper is best? Just organic, or is there a specific type? In America, you have heat units. In Australia, they don't label the heat units, but the stronger the heat units, of course, the less you need. And yes, going organic as much as possible. Do you have instruction for cataracts? I do, and that's castor oil. And I've had many, especially ladies, testify that the cataracts are starting to reduce after applying castor oil every day. You can put a drop in your eye, though that's very difficult, or you can just put a drop on your finger and wipe it over your eyelid. It will penetrate through. What about people with heart arrhythmia or DOTS, POTS, something like that? Sauna, move heart up. On Friday, I'll be talking about the heart, and I find that heart arrhythmia is often from caffeine, and it can be from wheat because of the very concentrated structure of the gluten or the protein that was created in the hybridization process. The heart can react with heart arrhythmia. Do you get through the scan machine at the airport? I've got this little pendant I wear, and it's malachite stone with a copper thread that apparently will protect me, they say. What are your thoughts on coffee enemas? I think coffee enemas can be very effective. They're great on for the liver. The Gerson therapy used a lot of coffee enemas. I'll tell you a funny story. There was a family living up in the hills, and every time the children had a bad cold, they would get a coffee enema. They just thought, that's what you do. And then they went down to the town to visit some friends who were drinking coffee. And the little boy ran to his mother and said, "Mom, they're drinking it." My question for Barbara is, where do you stand on fermentation of vegetables, grains and dairy? I think it's great, the cultured foods, because what that does is that boosts our own lactobacillus in our gut. And people have been eating cultured foods for centuries. Sauerkraut is a great one, yogurt, kefir, miso, the cultured foods are great. Now, if the cultured food is left too long and it begins to ferment, now it's creating alcohol, and now you've got yeast and bacteria. That is true. Then it's spoiled, and your smell will tell you that. But if it's done right, there will be none of that. Possible torn bicep tendon and rotator cuff. Can you repair it without surgery? You actually can. I've had some people with shoulder surgery, and they said it's the best thing they ever did. And then I've had other people that said it's actually made no difference, it's worse. So I would rather try no surgery. And my supraspinatus tendon, that's the tendon that causes you to go up like that. Now the deltoid takes it the rest of the way. I had a total tear with a 1 centimetre retraction. So I went to the orthopaedic surgeon who told me what was happening in there. And he said, that will need surgery because there's a 1 centimetre, or that's half-inch retraction. Anyway, so I went home and did comfrey poultices. We grow comfrey, so I did fresh comfrey poultices 4 hours twice a day. And I took high dose turmeric. And that really reduced the pain. But as you can see, it's totally healed. What did he say? It must have surgery. Now, because I'm a public patient, they put me down for surgery. And 10 months later, I got the sign, you can come and have surgery now. I said, oh, it's healed. What is the cause of excessive belching? Excessive belching can be chewing too fast. It can be low hydrochloric acid. So they're the two most common reasons. Wheat is a common cause of it. My grandchild is in Germany, 12 years old, in clinic with attention deficit syndrome and depression. Any herbal therapies that can make this better? Any recommendation? In the book, Stop Autism Now, it's not just about autism, it's also about attention deficit syndrome. The first 3 chapters, he looks at the causes. And I have to tell you, he comes to one main cause every time, and it's the childhood shots. But he also shows that when you eliminate the 5 allergens, the wheat, dairy, oats, peanuts, and refined sugar, 50% improvement in attention deficit syndrome and in hyperactivity and in autism. He also shows how coconut oil, supplementing with coconut oil, what it's easy for kids is just make a healthy chocolate with lots of coconut oil in it and get them to eat that. Should all vaccines be avoided for children? But my opinion is yes. You see, our body was designed to heal itself. And it can heal itself when you give it the right conditions. And you will find that all childhood illnesses were 90%, 80%, 90% wiped out before the vaccine. And yet we're told it was the vaccines, aren't we? So what caused the reduction? Florence Nightingale, increase in hygiene, sanitation, and nutrition. That's what caused a reduction, a huge reduction in those childhood infectious diseases. Did you know that in the 1850s, all the sewage from London went into the Thames, and the people living in London drank the water in the Thames? And they would wash once every 6 months. There's photographs of children playing in the street amongst sewage and rats. No wonder they had those diseases. When I lay down at night to go to sleep, I get tingling and itchy feelings in the top of my feet. Can you explain why this only happens at night? Not knowing your history, not knowing what happens in your day, it's hard to know why. It'd be interesting to know what that person does. Are they on their feet all day? It'd be interesting to know what their footwear is. I'm very fussy on my footwear because I'm on my feet a lot. And the biggest pores in the whole of your body are on the soles of your feet. So I'm very fussy about what the bottom of my feet touch. Must always be natural fiber. So you just investigate and try different things and see what helps. You're sleeping on your belly with a heating pad every night. Bad. You shouldn't have a heating pad. There's no need for a heating pad. A lot of heating pads are electrically. So you're sleeping with electricity, which is not good. You can't see those electromagnetic fields, but they're interfering with our electromagnetic field, and we're our electric people. What I do is I have a hot shower before I go to bed, and as soon as I get out the shower and dry myself, I put slippers on, which of course are made out of wool. So if my feet touch the cold floor, my feet will get cold. So have a hot shower and then get into bed. And in my cotton sheets and my quilt, you should be able to stay warm. What are some natural remedies for dandruff? Okay, done. Time for a break. Thank you.